everyone. Right now we have people from Texas to Hong Kong to Melbourne to Perth and Kuala Lumpur, Malaysia, and different parts of the United States. So welcome everyone. This is the first official session on our Sunday morning chats. Okay, so I just want to share when I'm doing these talks, right? So I pretty much have no notes and I center myself and download what the universe wants me to share. And it is interesting, most of you know about my work, some don't, and I just want to share a little bit. I come from Kuala Lumpur, Malaysia, grew up in a cosmopolitan area with multi-cultures, multi-religions, and came to the United States in 1979. So I have also been educated in different areas. I did my undergraduate work in London University and did my graduate work in Ohio. So the master's and the doctorates from Kent State University. And I'm sharing a little bit of my journey because the purpose of this Sunday session chats is to share with you things I have learned, especially in areas where mistakes I have made, because I think mistakes are very humbling. I think Dr. Long and I went to a school called the Victoria Institution back in the days. Only girls who have excelled in schools are allowed in the sixth form class. I was one of those fortunate girls, as I was a student in Pudu English Girls' School in Kuala Lumpur. The Victoria Institution was the only school that has a swimming pool. It was very unladylike for girls to swim. So when I wanted to learn how to swim, my mother begged me and tried to bribe me so as not to go to swimming classes. She would want to buy me this and buy me that. But I said, but I want to learn how to swim. And my father would drive me to the public pool behind her back. But I have dreamed about going to the Victoria Institution because not only do they have a swimming pool, they have this beautiful school uniform with a navy blue blazer, a jacket. We don't wear jackets, but I just wanted to wear that school uniform. And so I had to work 5 times harder than my very smart brothers to get into the VI. And unfortunately, the year I got into the VI, they converted to national school uniform. I never got that blazer. So later in life, when I became a professor at the university, one of the first things I did was to buy myself a navy blue blazer. And I would wear a tie to wear with my outfit when I was teaching at the university. Nobody knew it was my tribute to the Victoria Institution. A uniform I had coveted but never got. So I said, well, if I don't have it, I shall buy it. And so to share a little bit about this defiance, because growing up in a society that coveted men, I had 5 brothers. Everything I do to be noticed, I have to do 5 times harder. And so maybe it was my good luck to be challenged in such a way because it makes me who I am today. I'm not so smart like some of my classmates. I made a lot of mistakes in life, and partly because I was challenged in a way that you cannot do this. So don't tell Kweethai you can't do something. Actually, if you want something done, you just have to go to Kweethai and say, you cannot do this. Then I would find a way. If I can't go above it, if I can't go below it, if I can't go around it, I will walk through it. So those little pictures of you see me walking on hot coals, you see me doing different things, it's all part of my training in life's university. Now bear in mind, I don't have a perfect life. As I tell people, my children have tattoos. And there are many things that had not worked well in my life, but I must say the one thing that has worked very well for me is that I had the good fortune of being married to my best friend, finally. Dr. Steve Stork and I were colleagues and we never dated. And one day we decided that we looked at each other with different set of eyes. He asked me out, and on the third date, he proposed, and we got married in 2 weeks and lived happily ever after, because we've had 20 years of the most wonderful adventure. And we don't fight. We talk, but we don't fight. We don't always agree on things. I suppose people will say, well, many times your husband yields to you. And I think if you talk to him, it works both ways. So in a life's journey of learning about many things, I have learned many things about life and gone on and did the work and became an academic. I was a tenured professor. And then I went on to become a department chair. However, when I got to the top of the mountain, I found out it was the wrong mountain. So one day I just typed a letter of resignation, went up to my dean and quit my job as department chair and took a leap of faith. And the dean said, my God, is it money? Did someone offer you a lot of money? Can we talk? I said, no, ma'am. And no, ma'am, you can't afford me. And she said, you have gone mad. Nobody leaves a job like this without a new job. I said, yeah, I suppose I should be scared that I am not scared. Strangely, I wasn't scared at all. And I think there are a few moments in my life where I make some very crazy decisions, and most people think I've gone nuts. But I don't know if you've ever felt that way. Once in a while, you take a leap of faith and you make a decision. And I had at that time experienced a deep sense of peace and calm. And these are some of the things I want to share, because everybody has that intuitive gut, that little voice within you. When you're making the right choice, it is very easy. And you know, scary as it is on the outside, if it sits right with your soul, it is the best choice for you. So a lot of the work that I do now, not only do I help people get out of being stuck in an emotional, I call it a pit, and you can't dig yourself out. Once you get out of that, you still have to learn new ways of making choices so you don't get back into the same spot. Because if nothing changes, all you do is get out of your current pain. It's only geography of time, because in time you're going to go right back to where you were. So what works? So I went from all that way back, go back to the days of VI. I was one of the few fortunate girls who were allowed in this very prestigious high school. And I had great ambitions to be a brain surgeon. Right? My lab partner, Simon, I remember, he is now a very renowned cardiac surgeon. So a few years ago, I was in KL and I bumped into Simon at that medical center he was practicing. He was shocked to see me in his office. And then we kind of looked at each other. I said, wow, Simon, you achieved your ambition. You are a cardiac surgeon. That's what he said he wanted to be. And he said, Kweethai, so how about you? Are you the brain surgeon? I said, well, in a way I am. I just don't use a scalpel. Because now I work on subconscious minds and help people change their minds so that they can make changes in their lives. So in a way, I'm a brain surgeon. I just don't use a knife. But all our lives is one long journey. And life is what happens when you have other plans, right? I wanted to do this. I married my high school sweetheart, then realized it was a huge mistake. And I left that marriage before we had our first wedding anniversary. And then a couple years later, I met this American man and fell in love, married him, and came to the United States. And I spent 16 years as a housewife by choice. Because when I saw my first baby, I realized that I'd rather eat one meal instead of three. I cannot, in good conscience, let somebody else care for this baby. I am the most qualified babysitter for my child. So I stayed home for 16 years. My mother cried for 3 months. I had a good life, a good career, and now I'm in the middle of nowhere. My wardrobe consisted of 2 pairs of Levi's and a couple flannel shirts. And I was a country housewife, cooking and cleaning. When my mother came to visit, my brother said she went home and cried for 3 months. Here is her daughter who was top student at school, blah, blah, blah. And boom, she's in the middle of the nowhere, cooking and cleaning and growing her own vegetables. Imagine that. How horrible was that? So anyway, that stayed for 16 years. Now, what was interesting in that period, right? Kids, when they're young, they take a lot of your time, as now I'm caring for my 1-year-old grandson because I can't bear to send him to daycare, be exposed to virus out there. I realized that every part of our journey is a way of, I call it life is one long day at school. Some days you get good grades, some days you don't. Some days you get great teachers, some days you get teachers that tell you what you don't want to be. And then later on, I didn't become a doctor, because at that time when I married my high school sweetheart, he told me he did not want to compete with me in medical school. Back in the days, your grades are posted in school. You take a test and everybody sees your score is posted. So everybody knows where everybody stands, right? And I was a pretty decent student, but when you're a big fish in a small pond, I was top girl in my school, but when I got to the VI, everybody was top student from their school. So you become insignificant in an elite school, and everybody was smarter than you, and you have to work harder. And so there were times when I did better than my boyfriend at the time. And then when it's time to go to college, he said he did not want to compete with me in medical school. I thought it was the right thing to do, is to let my husband go to med school, and I gave up the medical school career. It was my choice. I'm not blaming anyone. But life is what happens when you have other plans. So that didn't work out. And then I went back to London to study law. And then shortly after, I married my children's father and came to the United States. So during the 16 years I stayed home as housewife, I enjoyed my children. I enjoyed the community. I learned so much. And then one day, I didn't care if I had no money. We didn't have much money. We lived in the country. I really didn't care. I didn't care if my friend next door has a big car. I didn't care anything, but I was just in love with life in the country and taking care of the children. I did a lot of house things, and I even started a cooking school. My mother was shocked because I was never in the kitchen growing up. And I had a cooking school. And I was very proud. My mother never went to school because her parents did not believe in educating girls. And so the first classroom my mother sat in was mine. That was quite an experience for me and for her. Well, having gone through all that, and one day someone said to the father of my children, I'd rather call him that than an ex anything, because we're still good friends. And we were out and about at the marina. We had a boat on the lake, and someone said, hey, your wife is a professional student. She's always reading and studying when we are out here on the lake, drinking and partying. And I thought, what a great idea. What a great idea. Someone says, I'm a professional student, and the definition of being a professional anything is someone paying you for your specialized services, right? And I thought, well, if it's one thing I can claim, I've always been a very good student. So I took that idea and I said, who is going to pay me to go to school? I had no money. Who's going to pay me to do what I'm good at doing? Then I took that idea and explored it and found out in America, we have such a thing called grants, research grants. So I found out there was a department in the university that helped people write grants. So I talked to everyone who's willing to talk to me and teach me something. And I learned how to write a grant. Long story short, I got $50,000 to do my PhD. And leveraging that money, I hired 3 research assistants. I had an office bigger than my professors when I was a student. And with that $50,000, I put myself through graduate school. I put 3 other people through graduate school. And guess what? I became a professional student. So how is that going to tie in with this iChange therapy stuff? I didn't get to be a doctor, but the desire to help people had always been there. I think all those of us who are in the profession of helping someone, besides being paid for your services, what you don't see in dollars and cents is far more valuable than the numbers you will add to your bank account. Someone sending you a picture. For example, I helped a client, and years later, I got a letter and a picture of her new family, and thanking me for that moment when working with me, she arrived at a decision that helped her make that drastic turn in her life. And now this is her new family. This woman was in a very abusive relationship. And finally, through our sessions, she was able to find enough strength to leave that abusive relationship. She has moved on, remarried, and she sent me a picture of her new family. Now, how do you measure something like that? Now, I still have only 2 hands, right? And I don't have any special tools. And this is what I want to share. The things I have learned along the way is accessible to everyone. Now, I know several people here are my students, and we learn how to do hypnotherapy and the iChange therapy process. But this is every piece of things I teach my students to help clients, anyone can do. Many years ago, so I said, well, I can't be a medical doctor anymore. So I went to graduate school while a housewife, and I got a master's degree in nutrition. I was very interested in cooking and growing my food and doing healthy meals. So my platform was to be an advocate for school nutrition in American public schools. So I would go to Washington, D.C. and do all the other stuff and be on my soapbox. And I realized that being said, nutrition is only a small section of our lives, a very important one, no less. So now I want to expand to look at, it's not enough just to feed you a good meal 3 times a day. It's not enough. And then I look at people who go work out and they have perfect bodies, perfect things, but they're real pain to be around. So I remember as a professor, I'll come to class and I said, how do you know you're healthy? How many healthy people in here? And all the hands go out. I said, how do you know you're healthy? So I would put a picture up. I said, here is a very heavy, a very obese man in a wheelchair with a big smile on his face. Here is a person with 6-pack, perfect body, and all fit and stuff. I said, who's the healthier person? I can tell you, I said, if, for example, that the person who looks perfect It's a real pain to be around. When he walks in the room, the plants will wilt and the goldfish will flip over. Whereas the other one, who is extremely overweight, but he can't walk, but when he wheels his chair into the room, it's like somebody turning on the sunlight. Who's healthier? Who's healthier? Then I realized, well, there are different aspects to look at what life is, what health is. And of course, it's great, you know, as a professor, you throw a question at the class and it covers the whole period. And I'm sitting back watching people debate. But it's more than that. It's to realize at what point will you say the person is healthy. So later on, when I became a lecturer, a professor to teach a graduate level statistics course, I asked the question, when do you consider a man has a beard? How many pieces of hair does he have to have on his face? And how long do these pieces of hair have to be before you say, oh, you know, Ben has a beard today? Gilbert doesn't shave for a couple of days, right? Will he just have a stubby face, or does he have a beard? Whose opinion do you want to go by? Right? So it's very interesting to consider these things. So as I plodded along, that nutrition wasn't enough. And so I needed to expand. I never ever thought I would go the route of being having a PhD. Then one day I encountered this fair at the university, and I met this guy behind the table, and we got talking, and he was a professor of health. And I go, wow, all I really wanted to do is to be a healthy person, and all I wanted to do is to help people become healthy. Maybe it's a good thing I never became a medical doctor, because the doctor only fixed the broken pieces. How about if I can intervene and stop people from breaking themselves? Sorry, medical doctors, I would be not a good thing for you guys, because my work is to help healthy people stay healthy. Then I expanded and I said, oh, well, maybe. So I made an application, not knowing, not thinking that I would be accepted. Who'd want me, right? I'm a little housewife in a country town in Ohio. Well, I got in, and I was very excited to study from many very good professors. Not only did I learn about health, my doctorate is in instructional design and curriculum in health education. My work way back then in that whole academic career is about how can I convince people to engage in healthy behaviors, because 80% of your health status can be attributed to the choices we make. So I spent many years learning about that, and I was convinced that health is a choice, right? If you're born in a nuclear waste dump and you have nowhere to go, you can't help. Maybe 5% of your life is dependent on that, right? Or you are right in the middle of a place where you get infected with the virus and you die. Or a small part is due to poor genetic makeup. Well, tough luck, we don't get to choose our parents. But the rest of the time, everything we do affects who we are. It's a choice. And most people don't realize that you do have a choice. You can choose who you want to sleep with what you want to sleep with. You can choose whether or not to wear a helmet. You can choose to eat one cookie or eat the whole box. You can choose to smoke this or not smoke this. You can choose to drink alcohol or not drink alcohol. There's a whole slew of stuff. So I was very excited about that. And I wanted to teach students who would go out to be school teachers. Because, for example, the average age for the first smoke in the United States is what? 11.6 years, last time I looked. So what's the point of teaching about smoking prevention in high schools? I tell you, they're all smoking already.
At high school, you don't need a smoking prevention program. You need a smoking cessation program. So part of the health education piece that I have spent my whole large part of my professional life in is like, oh my gosh, not only do we need to teach people, we need to teach people at the right time. And it's all about a good fit. It's all about giving people the right thing at the right time. Teaching me, for example, now that as a hypnotherapist, people want to come in and they say, oh, I want to quit smoking. So why do you want to smoke in the first place? Now I can put you in a hypnotic session and say, boom, when you open your eyes, you will never smoke again. But if I never address why you smoke in the first place, the next time you encounter that initiating stress factor, guess what happens? It's all my wife's fault. I had a fight with him, so I had to go and have a smoke. And then I said, well, then you better buy a season pass. I'll come back every 3 months because that's how you work. You fight and then you smoke and then you come back. But if we figure out what caused you to smoke in the first place and address that. So many years as a health professor, my purpose was to educate, to inspire, to motivate people to make that choice to engage in health promoting behaviors. And I did research and did all those things that professors are supposed to do. I got this bit of success, this bit, a little bit. Once in a while, in a big classroom, 150 kids, you may get 1 or 2 people who get it. I still have a stash of letters written to me by students how being in my health and wellness course had changed their lives. That's all very well. Health education is based on the model of I teach you, I hope to change your attitude, and then hope and pray very hard that you will make the right choices that are good for you. Well, I have learned in my experience, and research has shown us over and over, that's not how it works. Just go to any hospital, right? When I was doing my clinical internship at the Cleveland Clinic, parking space for interns are way at the other end of the block. So I have a long walk to go inside the hospital. By the time I approach the front entrance to the hospital, it's a whole blob of people. By that time, the hospital was a smoke-free building. You have doctors, nurses, and a bunch of people in scrubs outside smoking. I have to take 1 deep breath, hold my breath, and sprint through the door so I don't inhale secondary smoke. Now, don't these people know any better? Of course they do. So does knowledge transfer to behavior? No. Does knowledge transfer to attitude change? Probably, because I bet you many of those people smoking will be telling patients in their offices, thou shalt not smoke. They have the attitude that smoking is bad for you. Or flying from Cleveland to Portland one time to attend a Society of Nutrition Education conference. It's a long flight, about 4 hours. And most of these people are attending the professional conference in nutrition. Guess what? We're all starving. Flight attendant comes out with a tray of food. And if you put that in front of us at the conference, none of these nutritionists would even consider touching it. Guess what? We did the seafood diet. We ate what we saw. Why? Because physiology trumps psychology, right? The biological need was greater. So then I realized that all these wonderful things, ideas, and I wrote textbooks, and I was consulting with the Office of Women's Health, and even the Undersecretary of the USDA invited me to a summit in Washington, D.C. At first time when I saw the invitation, I thought it was a joke. Who wanted me at such an important conference? And I tossed it at the corner of my desk, and then my newly wedded husband said, what's this? We work in the same department. And I said, well, it's something from USDA. And he looked at it, he said, I think this is a real invitation. Then I called
my friend in Chicago who works for the undersecretary, he said, "You got an invitation?" I said, "That's what it is. Is this what you're talking?" He said, "Oh my God, do you know people in my office have been trying, they couldn't get an invitation." So it was real. I had to go through background check before I could attend the conference. And I said, "Nah, I don't have the money to fly to Washington, D.C. for a week." And so I sent a letter to our provost at the university, and immediately I got a call from him directly, and he said, "Book your tickets, we'll cover your expenses." It's not every day one of our professors get invited to something like this. And I just thought, wow, this is very interesting. Now, it's all very grand, and we are in, meetings to contribute to research and policy about school nutrition programs and what have you. Such a tiny speck in the ocean, right? And I said, even if I succeed in making everybody, having everybody eat the right things, that's not enough. People can eat a good meal and still feel very lousy. And if you look around us, we have great institutions of education. We have such smart people, wise people, clever people around us. Yet you look around us, why is it that we have so much suffering around us? Then I figured something out. And this is what I want to share with anyone who care to tune in and join us on Sunday mornings. The only thing that drives how we behave and how we make decisions is not knowledge. Knowledge does contribute somewhat. Attitude does contribute somewhat. But the bigger driving force is how you feel. It is how we feel. If I can feel better, right? So if you look at the whole opiate problem around the world, right? People don't know how to respond to feelings that don't make them smile. I think there's a whole big picture that each one of us can, in our own small way, make a contribution. We are taught that it is wrong to feel bad. Everybody wants to feel good, right? If you're laughing in a crowd, no problem, right? Everybody laughs and smiles with you. But if you're sitting in a group of people and suddenly you break into tears and cry, you get a very different response. It makes other people uncomfortable because we haven't been taught how to deal with things that don't feel good. Now, I know that the culture I grew up in as a child, my first involvement in a family funeral, I was 10 years old. It was my grandmother. I was able to see my grandmother laying in state in our family room for 3 days. She was a corpse for 3 days. We have to do these rituals and chant and do all that and say goodbye. I didn't understand it. I was 10 years old, but my grandmother used to take me to this Chinese temple across the street, and the monks, the lady monks at the temple were very kind, and they told me stories and helped me understand that grandmother would not be around to play with me tomorrow, but she'll be watching over me. And I was taught to accept death as very much a part of life. But in the culture that I'm in now, I don't see children at funerals very often. And children are shielded from this aspect of life, which is part of our lives. That I also see, and bear in mind, these are only my opinions, you don't have to agree with me. And I see that because we have such sophisticated technology, that people are compelled at all costs to keep the patient breathing, even when there is no more quality of life. Now, I'm very clear with that. Steve and I had talked about this a lot,
that I do not want to be kept on life support if I have no quality of life or ever have a chance to coming back to some semblance of life. Life to me is when I can feel. Life to me is when I can express how I feel. If I no longer can recognize my husband, you might as well switch it off. There is no more meaning there if I don't have the ability to engage. So coming back now, I'm looking at, wow, there is this big piece that's missing. Now, as I believe in the spirit of the universe, something crazy happened that day as I was sitting at my computer. I was on the 10th floor of this tower that I can see the city of Dallas, 30 miles away on a clear day. And all of a sudden, I had this feeling that my life is worth more than having department meetings to discuss where to move furniture. And I'm just saying that on a broad terms. A lot of times, I spend a lot of time as department chair, listening to squabbling of people. It's just a waste of my time. I love to teach. I love to do service. I love to do research, but I do not love to be sitting in front of a bunch of highly schooled, I didn't say educated, highly schooled individuals who tell a lot of lies to cover their own backsides. So it was very easy for me to leave that job. And I said, you know what? I can always revert to cooking for a living. I'm halfway decent cook. I run a cooking school and I can do many things. And it is that whole idea of knowing that I have no limits. That's what brought me to where I am today. Now, strangely, shortly after I quit my job and then getting emails from all my colleagues from all over the country, say, have you gone mad? And all I could say is, I must have, because I'm not scared. I suppose I should be very scared that I'm not scared. And I found that it was strange for me to say that because I never professed to be religious or anything like that. But I said, I just trust that something will come up. Actually, it was my husband who told me when I came home and said, hey, I quit my job. And he said, well, I'm sure you'll come up with something better. You always do. Now, isn't it wonderful to have somebody who would believe in you when you're not sure if you could believe in yourself? We all need people like that in our lives. So then one day by chance, and that's a long story, I won't go into it now, hypnotherapy found me. I went into training and launched full-fledged 2 weeks before I got certified to practice clinical hypnotherapy. I bought my office building, put everything I had in it, and a friend who's a business consultant said, hey, Kweethai, I can help you develop a business plan. I said, I already have one. It's very simple. I plan to be very successful, one client at a time. And it is, I think that idea of one thing at a time that I think is very valuable. So that's how I got to hypnotherapy. And it's interesting, the day I decide to go full-fledged to practice hypnotherapy, I did a lot of thinking and it worked very well for me. I am still a health educator because a health educator's job is to help people make the right changes for them. And I realized as a health educator, there was one big piece that was missing. As a health educator, my job is to give you the tools, the education, the knowledge to make those choices for yourself. And it may help you be a little healthier by whatever way you define healthier to you. But I realized that you cannot be healthier unless you are happier. Ultimately, we all want to be happy. If you have to choose, if this is the last day of my life, do you want me to have blood work in my labs or do you want me to smile and die with a smile? I would die with a smile. Because for me, it's very important to have that quality of life somehow we attract into our practice people who are more like ourselves than not. So I live in a metropolitan area, and so I see a lot of clients who are professional people, who are highly successful people, successful as in career success. And they find that they spend most of their adult life chasing after arbitrary markers for success. And they get there and they realize their lives are quite empty because what they lack is spirit. How I launch iHealth Center for Integrated Wellness is that I realize that we have to be complete in mind, body, and spirit. But most people out there and in health business, we focus too much on the physical, the body, how I look, oh, I've got to lose 50 pounds. And every time we stand in front of the mirror and say, oh, I can't buy a new dress until I drop a size. In that one moment, you have degraded yourself, you have insulted your body. It translates to, I don't like you. You're talking to yourself in the mirror. You don't deserve anything. So you're not good enough until you drop 50 pounds. Well, we'll talk more about that down the road. But in the mind, body, and spirit paradigm, I realized that I've spent too much time with working with the body and to some degree the mind. What is really crucial is the spirit. If your spirit is in the right place, the rest will take care of themselves. That is the weakest link of them all. Most people are afraid to even use the word spirit because they think you're going to launch into some religious discussion. In my book, I have a chapter that talks about religion and spirituality. Someone once asked me, Kweethai, what is your take on the difference between religion and spirituality? And this response came out without my even thinking about it. It surprised me what comes out of my mouth sometimes. Spirituality is like the moonlight. Religion are man-made boxes in an attempt to capture a moonbeam. Even if you do capture the moonbeam, it's nothing more than one moonbeam. So why don't we just throw away the boxes and bask in the moonlight? To me, spirituality is that inner knowing that you belong in the bigger universe. We are all spawned from this great big universe. We are all one piece of the big universe. And over the years as a hypnotherapist, I found that most people come in, the underscoring malady, no matter what symptoms they check off in my intake form, the fundamental paucity is in that of the spiritual realm. They don't know who they are in the big scheme of things. If you find your space, if you know who you are, then you can stay in one place. Now, last week somebody asked me, what do you mean by being grounded? Being grounded is to know how to stay centered. The Buddhist monk, they spend a lot of time going inside. And if you like them, they'll say, it's okay. If you don't like them, they also say, it's okay. Because their worth is not based on your version of them. They already have their own version. This is that whole universe of things I want to share. Now, from the iHealth is the notion, I said, we want ideal health. Health comes from multivariate dimensions. You have physical health, you have emotional health, you have intellectual health, you have social health, you have financial health, you have occupational health. And so I decided to make this multifaceted thing on How do you know you're healthy? So I made up this little index for people to say, and everybody has that ability. And perhaps we'll explore that more in another section. So I say, if each of these dimension you give a score from, of course, is more than 0. At 0, you're dead, right? So a little bit in the positive side to perfection in 10, give yourself a score. So I go through with my client, go through, and then they'll come up with a score of a certain percent. I said, what percentage do you set yourself to pass as being a healthy person, right? And so now we're looking at a complex multivariate equation. And what weight do you put on spiritual health? Emotional health is being able to say what you need to say to the person you need to say to at the time you need to say it. Wow, who does that? Right? Children do that. They come over and he said, you got egg on your nose. Right? But if somebody comes into our polite group and somebody's got egg on his nose, everybody is very politely smiling, but nobody will have the courage to tell the person, hey, you've got egg on your nose. And that's because throughout life, from childhood to where you are today, we have been taught lies. We have been conditioned to lie about stuff. And I'll talk more about that in coming sessions. So I realized that what I have learned and I have applied to help so many people over the last 16 years is that when you figure out that small thing, you can, if you decide to apply it, be certainly a lot healthier and definitely a lot happier in many ways. Because sometimes I have clients come in and say, I want to be happy. Oh, that's a tall order. I can't in one session solve all the problems in your life. But I can do one thing though. I say right now, what will it take for you to say, I am happy? What do you need right now? So one client said, I need $100,000. I said, okay, I pull out my checkbook. If I gave you this check of $100,000, will you be happy? What would you do with it? And she goes, well, it's just that I owe my mother this money I borrowed to buy the house, and she's using that to control me. So if I get rid of this debt, my mother will no longer control me. So I said, your problem is not the money, is it? Your problem is you and your mother. Because if that is the dynamic, the $100,000 will put a Band-Aid on it. Something else will come up unless you change that dynamic. And I hope you've enjoyed this. But what I'd like to do in the last 8 minutes is to do a small meditation so that when you walk away today, tonight, this morning, this afternoon, wherever you are, that you feel a little bit healthier and you feel a little bit happier. So if you please join me, sit back and find a comfortable position. And don't close your eyes yet. Focus on something right across from where you're sitting. I want you to inhale on the count of 10 and exhale on my count of 10 with eyes open. And then I will instruct you. Thank you for playing with me. Take a deep breath. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Exhale, 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Just do the best you can. And inhale, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Exhale, 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Inhale, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. As you exhale, close your eyes. 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Now you can continue to breathe normally, easily, in and out. With every breath you take,
you feel a little bit more relaxed, letting go of all the stress of the day, relaxing, relaxing a little deeper and deeper. And you might be aware that certain parts of your body may feel a little tension or discomfort. In the next breath of exhale, focus on that and blow it away. Breathe in and out, letting go of all the stress. Breathe in love and breathe out stress. Very good. And now you just feel more and more at peace with yourself. More and more at peace with yourself. There's nothing to do right now. And just appreciate this moment of peace. There's nothing to do. Just enjoy this moment. And now, if you will, find that little spot of light that hangs between your belly button and your spine. And some of you may be able to experience this light. Pay attention. Notice how big or small it is, how bright or not so bright it is, and whatever color it is. Breathe in and out. And if you've located that light now by your own choice, make it brighter. There, make it bigger. And now spread the light all the way up your upper body until it reaches the top of your head. Flow across your shoulders to your fingertips. And wiggle your fingers. And now spread the light downwards through your hips, your legs, down to your feet, your toes, and wiggle your toes. Breathe in and out and play with this light. Notice how good it feels, how peaceful it is. If you like, notice if there's a color. Imagine if we could make a sound, what it would sound like. And if you can touch it, what does it feel like? Just know this is your quiet space. Breathe in and out. Now setting an intention, telling every cell in your body to be well. Turning on the wellness switch in every cell, from the top of your head to the bottoms of your feet. And put a smile on your face. You're smiling for yourself. Smiling that you are grateful for this day and grateful to be alive. Now take a deep breath, gently, easily, and slowly, bringing your consciousness back into the room and holding that peaceful space for as long as you like. Take a deep breath, gently open your eyes and stretch. The mic is open. So how does my dear classmate grade me, Dr. Long?
You are true to form. From the time I first met you, it's like you know what you want and you know how to get it. And yeah, you will just find a way and enjoy it in the process. Yeah, I like the idea of being a professional student because that's the only way to remain for the rest of our lives. The experts become dinosaurs.
Right. Thank you. Thank you. Speaking from one who walks his talk, thank you so much. It means a lot to me, Celine. I mean, I haven't seen you in 50 years, and you're still the same very wise, considerate gentleman you've always been.
Thank you so much, Kweethai. This is my second session, and thank you for inviting me. And I really enjoy my Sunday mornings
Thank you.
So I'm looking forward to it every Sunday now.
Well, great. There's more to come. As I don't script my chat. It just, I have no idea where it's going to go. And there's more to come. And next week, I'll tell you how iChange therapy evolved. And there'll be many more stories to tell. And I like doing this because hopefully this become archived as a legacy I hope to leave. Things I've learned, I've shared. And as for this, I do not want to be paid. I think if you learn something from it and it's meaningful to you, my only wish for you is to go out and do something nice to someone else. Share that information. That's my hope.
My present thinking is that our emotions and choices have cosmic consequences.
Yes.
And if somehow this can be linked in practical daily life, it would change an individual's view of himself or herself tremendously. Our Greek thinking doesn't think that way. We are just a piece of protoplasm and temporarily kind of stuff. But my present thinking is that we really do have cosmic consequences in all our emotions, choices, and actions, seen or unseen.
Yes.
And therefore, when that happens, we take life much more holistically.
Well, this is the whole basis of our practice, is to help people change how they feel. It's not change how they think, it's to change how they feel. If you feel differently about something, you've already changed. Because thoughts can be persuaded. You get to choose, we get to choose how to feel. And that's very powerful. And I think as I continue to dialogue and share, and thank you for the comment, and we all learn from it. And wouldn't it be great to put this in school curriculum? Start teaching young children that they have choice, that the choices they make have consequences, and then their sense of responsibility. And these are the things I want to expound on in future sessions. It's just like, oh gosh, here I am. I put one small idea, big changes. I said, what am I going to talk about? But I think this is a good introduction, because I think every piece, at first I wanted to call this Lessons in Life, because I started writing stories about little things I've learned as a child that affects us. And sometimes when I'm working with a client, I do a lot of storytelling to teach them. It's a lot better if you tell stories and let the client decide, oh, wow, maybe I can do that too. Rather than I tell the client, this, you do. We don't like to be told what to do, but we like to be guided, facilitated. And I sort of, you have this big funnel, you just kind of slowly guide them. And suddenly they go, oh, there it is. I said, oh, what a brilliant idea. and the humbling piece I have learned is I don't need to be the hero. I don't need to be the hero. I just want to facilitate for the client to be the hero. Let the client own the session. But don't let the client run the session. Right? Well, any more comments?
Thank you, Dr. Kweethai.
Well,
I just wanted to say thank you.
Thank you very much, and I'll see you next week.
Thank you as always.
Thank you. Thank you, Steve, for being technical expert here. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Right.
Good night.
Good night.